At all levels of government from the very top about perceived faults and slights by my country, by the United States. How did you leave Europe out? You could read today's Wall Street Journal and read the same stories today. How did Europe get left out? Will it change at Davos? Is there a G2? What happened to Europe? Recounting this last meeting where Barack Obama and the Chinese slighted and omitted Europe. And then I can tell you when I go back to my country the first week of January for a European ambassadors meeting, and I talked to Secretary Clinton, and I talked to Secretary Gates and General Jones and Todd Stern, our climate negotiator. I told Todd Stern about the frustration and who had called me in and what they had said. And they weren't only disagreed, they were shocked to hear it. Because if you ask Todd Stern, for example, he'll say Europe was left out. Europe was completely involved every minute of the day. Europe was involved from the start to the end. Europe was involved while we're in the hall. And what I began to realize is the people who told me that Europe was left out and the people telling me that Europe was included disagreed on what Europe was. And the problem is, so does Europe. And so who speaks for Europe? What Europe represents? Who are the Europeans? That is in flux. And that fundamental notion will affect everything we do. It will affect the economic recovery. It will affect our approach to Iran. It will affect what we do in Afghanistan. It will affect what we do in climate. It will affect whether you view Mexico City as a wasted opportunity or the next opportunity, or whether change occurs right now. So clearly the uncertainty in Europe is in flux. And it produces the stories like, is there a G2? Or either your favorite word or your least favorite, BRIC, B-R-I-C, which if I never hear again, I will have heard too often. There is similar uncertainty on my side of the Atlantic. And I'm surprised to say it. It is not uncertainty about who Barack Obama is. Fundamentally, I think that's clear. It's clear to me. I don't think it will change. He's a man fundamentally who believes in the capital markets, but believes they need to be regulated to avoid those who would abuse them. He believes deeply in climate and would personally welcome a cap and trade system. He believes in free trade and believes in joint prosperity, but believes no one should be left behind. He believes in the fundamental right for health care. So who Barack Obama is will not change. But how he pursues such goals, I think, is in flux. Because first and foremost, he is a pragmatist. First and foremost, he realizes that the best way to reach one's ideals is through the compromise that's inherent in any progress, the compromise that's necessary in any achievement. He has always said you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so fundamentally, in a world after Massachusetts, in a world where the signs were on the wall before Massachusetts, how he gets to where he wants to go may change. And that creates a great deal of uncertainty. The need to achieve his agenda is not a political need. Never confuse that Barack Obama will now change course on health care or change course on how hard he pushes for climate because he's trying to win an election. If I've ever met anyone who would be just as satisfied in his own skin whether he won or lost, it's Barack Obama. He didn't run to win, he won to affect change, and he can walk away today and be perfectly fine. So it's not about that. It's not about midterm elections. Footnote, midterm elections are one of the things least well understood in Europe. The day Barack Obama got elected, we were guaranteed to, the Democratic Party was guaranteed to lose 30 seats in the midterm election. Those seats were rented. Those seats were rented by virtue of the fact that in one election, Barack Obama is on the ballot. So they may be 60-40 Republican districts. But if Barack Obama was on the ballot, people who never vote came out to vote that time, and a 60-40 Republican district could go and elect a Democrat congressman. If Barack Obama had a 98% approval rating, he's still not on the ballot at the midterm elections. Those people do not vote. They won't vote for 8 more years or 16 years. And so that district was going Republican the day Barack got elected. And therefore, he knew that he had that kind of majority and that kind of cushion for about a year and a half, till April or May of this year, when the second term elections would come in. That would freeze any major development, and he would lose seats. So when it happens, it is not a referendum on the Obama presidency whatsoever. That's not the issue. But the issue is the views of the average American. The average American isn't pro-climate or against climate right now. They don't think about climate right now. They think about jobs. The average American isn't worried about free trade with Europe or not. They're not thinking about Europe. They're thinking about jobs. And so for Barack Obama, his focus has got to be now, and I suspect you'll hear, I have not seen the State of the Union address. You're all invited to my house at 3 in the morning to watch it live. But I suspect the focus will be on jobs, jobs, and jobs. That is because that's where the heart and mind of America is right now. When you have over 10% unemployment, that is all people are thinking about. That creates half the families in the United States are touched by that unemployment. So that's going to dominate the American agenda of necessity, not of political necessity. But you cannot succeed in your mission without the backing of the people, and that's the necessity that's there. So whether it's climate, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, the topics that dominated the last 6 months. And by the way, Iran will in fact dominate the next 6 months, but not on Obama. They are indeed luxuries that American people don't deal with, and that Barack Obama will deal with less than will satisfy Europe. That creates huge opportunity in Europe because Iran has to be dealt with. Afghanistan has to be dealt with. Climate has to be dealt with. And the dynamic of Barack Obama announcing the sanctions and people in Europe reacting and saying, we'll take 3 from column A, but we really don't like the 4th, it's a wrong dynamic. Europe could just as easily partner and lead on that, take the pressure off the Obama administration, who could focus on jobs while being very happy to watch Europe lead on Iran. There is no G2 if Europe is in the lead. There's nobody in the United States who says we don't want Europe solving Afghanistan, Guantanamo, Iran, climate. The question to do it, though, is who's Europe? And so the two uncertainties lead to this kind of vacuum, which then creates lots of theories by lots of journalists as to how is the world purposely changing and who's behind this great theory of change. And it's a conspiracy theory that doesn't exist. Anyone could step up. My favorite candidate would be Herman Van Rompuy. Can he do it within Europe? I don't know. But could he partner with Barack Obama? Absolutely. That takes me to the third uncertainty that you deal with every day, which is Belgium. I am probably the only person who says this, but I believe Belgium has the potential to be one of the most important countries in the world for very similar reasons. I say that as a lawyer, I used to have 10 clients at a time. Now as an ambassador, I have 2 clients at a time. I have Belgium and I have the United States. And so I've gone to everyone in Belgium and said, I will never ask something for one client that would be at the expense of another. But the win-wins are right there, they're everywhere. There is a leadership vacuum that anyone could step into. And so it doesn't matter how many men you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It matters how much moral conviction is behind your voice when you speak. And for Belgium, the one thing they have an excess of is moral conviction. If Berlusconi says something, everybody in this room has an impression. If Sarkozy says something, everyone in this room has an impression. If Gordon Brown says it, he's an ally of the U.S. When Belgium speaks, people listen. So I've gone around urging Belgium to speak, saying, in fact, that I don't need your men, I don't need your money, but I need your voice. And there's an uncertainty as well, created largely by not by the Wallonian